Honestly, like, let's talk about what we're experiencing right now, which is that kind of like brain fog that occurs when you've worked a night or two or three.
Yep.
So I say we talk about that because we're both in it right now.
How many days have you worked? What? One? Come on.
Welcome to MedRoom Chronicles, Nursing Uncensored. Join nurses and other care providers as they let you in on discussions usually reserved for the privacy of the locked medication room. In this weekly nursing podcast, the filters come off and we tell it like it is. Your hosts, nurses Adrianne Benning, Andrew Craig, and Brad McLaughlin, are here to educate and entertain on all things in the nursing world. This podcast is intended for nursing students, nurses, or anyone who wants a sneak peek into the real world of bedside nursing. So join us, laugh along the way, and maybe learn a little something too. And thanks for listening, guys. Hello, nurses. Here at MedRoom Chronicles, we may be uncensored, but we are not unfiltered. Protected health information has been changed and concealed to comply with HIPAA. The things we talk about are combinations of years of experience with thousands of patients, things we've read, or stories we've heard. If you think we're talking about you, we're not. Also, we're real nurses here to provide accurate and helpful information, but don't take us as fact without doing your own research. Refer to your state's Board of Nursing, Practice Acts, and your institution's policies and procedures if you have questions about your practice. Lastly, our very strong opinions are ours alone and do not reflect that of our employers or educational institutions. Thanks for listening, and happy nursing, folks.
Welcome to MedRoom Chronicles. This is Adrianne back with Andrew today, and we actually kind of already started our conversation, but we are just jumping right in, you guys. This is yet another episode. We're flying right along, and Andrew, welcome back.
Thanks, Adrianne. Good to be back. I am excited to talk today. I just got off work, a 3-day stretch, and we're going to be talking about some brain fog today, which is so relevant to how my brain feels.
Yeah.
And I was just telling you, I just did a post on the Travel Nurse Network that literally said, at the end of your shift, that moment you realize you've been staring at the same sentence for 7 minutes straight.
And you have no idea what it says.
Oh, I was literally, Adrianne, I was trying to extract information out of my brain this morning because nothing was working. I always say my brain gets mushy. If there's something about... I wonder, are there something about nursing and third shift that just makes you just like you have dementia at the end of your shift?
Yeah, multiple nurses have expressed to me before that sometimes they're like, man, if I get pulled over on the way home, that makes me a little nervous. I can't walk a straight line. I can't form a sentence. Totally. So, and not to get too serious, missy statistics over here, but like driving tired is pretty much the same as driving with some drinks in your body because your reflexes are slow. Yeah. So basically, I mean, I'm not going to get in all that, but yeah, you get off work and you're like, yes, officer, I'm completely sober. I've just been awake for 3 nights caring for demanding, sick, confused people.
It's funny, I started to notice that I was having problems, when I was working with you at the University of Iowa, as far as like sleepiness, like right at about 4 a.m. Chronically, from 4 to 7 a.m. is where my brain is just, I have to drink a shitload of coffee sometimes. I have to go on walks. Because if I don't stay active, which usually I'm busy with nursing, but there's also lulls, yeah. I'm just completely useless, I feel like, inside, which to all the patients listening out there, I promise I'm still doing a good job. I'm just...
Yeah, we just, we have to shake it off. It's like anything. It's like when you're driving for a long time and you kind of get that tunnel vision a little bit. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're about to fall asleep. It just means that you got to be like, all right, I got to get up and move. I got to drink some coffee, got to drink some water, like whatever. Yep. Those nights do happen where it's like, and actually, to back it up, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's interesting that you say 4 a.m., okay? Because I can't show a diagram to our listeners, but if you were to look at the human circadian rhythm between like 3 and 4:30-ish is when your body temperature dips. Your body is usually in deep sleep. So basically what I'm saying is that time that you're citing, that kind of like 4 a.m. magic point for 4 a.m. where everybody that's on shift is kind of like, unless you're running your tail off, you're like, even if you're running your tail off, you're like, I could lay down on the floor, regardless of what germs are on this floor, and go to sleep.
Right. Right. And even though I'm a super hypochondriac, I don't care.
Yeah. You're like, I'll totally put my face on this table that has some, no, I mean, I wouldn't get super gross. I wouldn't like, put my face directly on a table. However, sometimes you're so tired you feel like you almost want to. But yeah, that 4 a.m. time is the part of your body that is like trying to fight your resistance to go to bed. So yeah, that's why you kind of like, you see like nurses grabbing blankets out of the closet if they're sitting charting because they get the shivers. It's because that's what your body does.
Interesting.
Yeah, I encourage you to like look at kind of like a visual representation of the human circadian rhythm and look at the times and figure out like, oh, yes. Mm-hmm. So not only are we doing like difficult work, but we're doing it against all of our body's sensibilities.
Right. Well, I was just talking to a nurse last night. She's a nurse practitioner student. She's almost done. Super nice lady. Regarding the sensibilities of your body, there's research out there that shows working a third shift just destroys your body, and it actually can affect your life expectancy.
And they're also saying that there is some kind of correlation. They don't know what, but there's some kind of correlation between that and dementia as well. Like when you're chronically sleepless, I think it has something to do with how the plaques build up in your brain. It worries me because I've been on night shift for over a decade. And at the moment, I don't have any prospects of leaving this shift. I think that, while it's something I have to consider, it's kind of this cognitive dissonance. It's like, I know that, this is not good for me. However, I just have to do the best I can.
It's a means to an end. It's a job. You've got to make money. You sustain yourself. Listen, Adrianne, if you end up becoming completely demented, the ones that strip down and completely crazed and confused in nursing homes, I will be your friend still. I promise you.
All right. I appreciate that. Just, you guys, so I have a funny little side note. I have an advanced directive. I think everyone 18 years of age and older should have one, regardless of health status. In my advanced directive, at the end of the form that I filled out, which if you live in Iowa, you can go to honoringyourwishes.org, and you can just print one out and take it to a FedEx store and have it notarized for $5 or $10, and you've got an advanced directive. Basically, in my advanced directive, where I outline, do I want to be resuscitated, under what conditions, like what's quality of life, et cetera, guidance for my doctors in the event that I become unable to make my own decisions. Right. But at the end of that, there's like a section, like a free form space. It's like, is there anything else you'd like to add? And this is honestly true, I wrote a letter to my nurses, which I know that as nurses, we don't always see the advanced directive, but at least that way, if my family or physicians have access to it, they can potentially communicate. But in my advanced directive at the end, I was thinking about, okay, if I was a patient or if I was a nurse taking care of me, okay, so I'm someone else taking care of myself. What do I want to know about me when I'm confused, out of my head, unable to communicate? What's important? And so I put a few points down. I don't remember what they are. It's like in my safe. The top two, the first one I put was, I have been a daytime sleeper for like 14 years. 14, I think at the time I put like 10 plus years because I had just reached my 10th year. Whatever. Basically, if you're a nurse taking care of me, you have no shot in hell of getting me back on a good sleep schedule. Like, right. I'm going to be the person on the call light at night crying out, crawling out of bed, thinking she's got to go to work. Yeah, I'm going to be the old lady. The second point that I put on my letter to my notes to my nurses was that I cannot sleep on my back. I sleep on my stomach. So if I at any point had to have cardiac wires or an EEG or like, I'm like incapacitated, need to be turned, please
Please let me sleep on my back.
No, don't let me sleep on my back.
I mean, on my belly. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
On my side as I can. Like, as long as so stuff like that I put on there, like I don't sleep at night, I don't do this, I can't sleep like this, because these are things that I've had experiences before where I'll have that patient that doesn't sleep all night and they drive me crazy, and then I'll like put them really far over in a position, and then they'll just be like, and then they're out, and I'm like, oh my fucking god, if I just knew that guy slept on his left side, whatever. So these are things that I put in my advanced directive, but that's a long roundabout aside for me to basically communicate that night shift messes with you. It really does, especially when it's long term.
Oh, heck yeah. Listen, I've been doing night shift for almost 5 years now. And you've been doing it, what, 12, 13?
12 at the hospital. No, 11 at the hospital and 2 in home care.
I can't tell if it's the work that we do that eats at you a little bit. It's got to be both. Third shift and
it's hard to tease those apart. Is it just literally physicality of having to be awake all night, or
there's definitely, though, what I miss about normal life is the energy level. I always have a baseline amount of lethargy. Like, I'm trying to lose weight right now. I'm having very slow progress, and I'm on the wagon of doing good for a few weeks, and then I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to eat a pizza, cheeseburger, and some Butterfingers tonight and go to town, because I need that comfort, because I don't get any sunlight. And so I just miss the energy. I miss gardening. I miss sunlight sometimes. And that's what I'm finding right now, Adrian, is it's really, really bothering me. It didn't used to. I'm like, yeah, this is great. I don't have to deal with administrators as much, bosses as much, really as many other staff as much, and families. But there's a part of me that wants some of that now. It's weird. It's so weird. It's like I'm willing to trade off the shittiness of the day shift to get back to normal life. Not to say that people that work on days are shitty. More like the pace of days.
It's a different. Here's the thing. It's just a different preference. Do you prefer to work at the front desk, or do you prefer to work in the stock room? Do you prefer to be, on 100% all day for every single person in the hallway? Or do you want to be able to sneak into that break room at 3 a.m. and like take 10 minutes to yourself? It's a different environment. It's not, I'm not going to get into the one's harder, one's better, one's whatever. They're different for different personalities. And I don't blame you. Here's the thing. If I could, have my cake and eat it too, I prefer to work night shift. I do better on night shift. I think I'm more nurturing. I think I'm just a better fit to take care of people at night. Okay, that's just a personality thing. And it's easier for me to stay up all night or stay up for 2 nights than it is for me to try to get up at a quote unquote normal hour.
Right, 5 in the morning or something.
Yeah, or to go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. Like that, like my brain does. I feel like I'm not even cognitively alert until until the sun's gone down. And then I'm like, huzzah! But,
I'm here.
True. But I also, and this will be for a self-care episode. That's why self-care is so important. That's why it's important to factor in sunlight and interaction with actual human beings. Even if, because I like grocery shopping at night.
I love it.
Yeah, but at the same time, also, like, I miss those, I'll, like, go during the day and I'll run into someone I know and have a great, like, 4-minute conversation by the cereal. And then I'm like, shopping during the day is, like, kind of good. Like, it's kind of socially cool. And then I have to wait in line for 25 minutes. And I'm like, fuck this. Where's the stock guy at 3 a.m. who just wants to bring me up and go back to his work? Like, I want to kind of refocus us for a minute, because I think this has turned into a free-for-all night shift discussion. But I want to keep us on task of this, like, brain fog. This, like, people are like, well, you only work 3 days a week. That's the classic thing.
Oh my God.
And the classic thing that, like, nurses complain they hear. But I mean,
listen,
yeah.
Can I need to address that very statement that you just said that I hear so fucking much.
You work 3 days a week.
You only work 3 days a week. Listen, I'm going to tell you a story. I had a coworker in the past that her boyfriend would say, oh, you only work 3 days a week? when I hear that type of shit, first of all, it boiled her blood and it boiled mine, because that doesn't give us the credit that we deserve. Night shift, 36 hours a week. Okay, I know full time is 40 hours a week, but let me tell you, if people knew what we did on a regular basis, they would not be able to, I don't think they would comfortably be able to say, oh, you only work 36 hours a week.
Well, and also the thing, okay, so it's multifactorial, because it's true. You're fighting your circadian rhythm. You are not seeing your family for potentially, 2-3 days at a time, because you're going to bed, you're getting up, you're showering, you're going to work, you're coming home, you're going to bed, you're getting up.
And then the recovery the day after and day before.
Yeah, I haven't even gotten to that yet. So we're just talking about like the process of like work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep, because that's what it is. Like when I work a couple or 3 days in a row, I get home at like 8:30. I try to be asleep by 9 so that I have a shot in hell. I mean, that's assuming that I fall asleep, which doesn't always happen, but that's assuming I fall asleep. So I have a shot in hell getting 8 hours before I get up again and have to, take care of my actual life and the fact that I have to eat and poop and shower and feed my pets and all of that, and before I get back to work. And that doesn't even factor in time for the boyfriend and the mom and the friend. No. So then you've got the stress of the actual shift. I also want to add in the fact the 36-hour thing, bullshit. I don't work 36, I'm not full-time because I'm in school, but if I were full-time, I would say bullshit. I'm more than full-time, because I come in early and I don't clock in to get my assignment, look at my med list, make sure I'm prepared so that if I get shitty report, I'm ready to go. I don't have to scramble. Sometimes I don't get a break. Sometimes I eat my lunch while I'll like take a couple bites, go answer a call light because we're busy and, you got to do that. So when you add it all up, that 36 hours, you're charting, you're commuting. Bullshit, 36 hours. I call bullshit. Like, it is way more than that.
That doesn't even take into account that a lot of nurses travel a great distance. They'll drive an hour one way. For instance, Sarah, she was living an hour away from the University of Iowa when she lived with me, and she would drive 2 hours every day. So 12 hours plus 2 hours, plus probably 2 hours-ish of preparation before and after each shift. We're talking maybe a 16-hour day, and that's assuming that she got out of her shift at
on time.
Shift time. And oftentimes she didn't, because you know how shift changes, shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
So she ends up leaving late to try to put out fires. So she might have a 16, 17-hour day. And that what does that leave?
And then go home and sleep for 5 or 6 hours and then
do it all over again. And, girls take longer to get ready than guys. I mean, I can wake up, get a rest. If I really rush, I could probably get showered, dressed in 15 minutes.
Yes. So it's true. So your 12-hour shift can turn in, and also then, just to complain about the other components, traffic, snow, broken down cars.
Yep.
Waiting for the person you carpool with. So your exhaustion compounds as the days go on. And we haven't even taken into account the fact that you are potentially walking 5, 6, 8 miles on your shift.
Hell yes.
Pushing, pulling, the intellectual, turning, calling doctors, figuring out if your meds are compatible, keeping a constant timeline in your head, constantly reprioritizing. Then you have family member that may or may not be time consuming. Then you've got the fact that when you're on night shift, you always got to poop at the wrong time. You're always hungry at the wrong time. It becomes a very intricate choreography of day. If I needed to, I could be out the door in 10, 15 minutes. But really, truth of the matter is, if I want to look presentable and not like a crazy person, I need an hour. But that hour includes the fact that probably going to just kind of dilly-dally when I first get up. I'm going to eat. I'm going to shower. I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to make sure I have all my shit. I'm going to pack my lunch. I'm going to interact with Doug, whatever. So now that we've kind of listed all of this stuff, it's easy to see how when we say, you only work 3 days a week? No, folks.
Oh, hell no.
And that's just on an average day. Now you take into account a day where you have emergencies,
codes,
you're short-staffed, your code, rapid response, admissions, discharges in the middle of the night, patients dying, demanding family members that show up at 3 a.m. and have no idea why you don't want them going in and turning on the TV and having a conversation with your sleeping patient. So the physical, the emotional, the intellectual exhaustion, on top of the fact that you keep going. Like, I think that's why sometimes on my days off, when I'm exhausted, I'll be like barely holding my eyes open and I'll be like, why am I forcing myself to stay awake right now? Oh yeah, it's because that's the default setting of my brain right now. Like, my brain doesn't go, hey, you're at home. Go to sleep.
What I found is my lack of energy and this so-called brain fog has really affected my willingness to socialize with people. I don't go out as much. I don't see my family as much. It's because I lack the energy. I'd much rather recover at home and do nothing, because you hear like nurses, they just love to Netflix and sit on the couch and maybe have a little glass of wine or more than a glass. I mean, I don't know what they do, but actually I do know what they do. Let's be honest. Nurses are party animals. Okay. Let's be real. They drink. And that's a whole other section in itself, talking about nurses that do drugs, they drink, they smoke, those types of things, because we're human. And so that's, people like they sweep that under the rug like that's not a thing, but that's totally a thing, because I've been there as a nurse. And so anyway, that's a little bit of a rambling, but the bottom line is...
But it's a valid point. It's that, like, yes, we want to be models of good health. We want to encourage our patients to do the same. But also, like, we like eating food that's bad for us, that tastes good. And, I've been quit as a smoker for 3 years now, but I smoked for 10 years. I rolled my own filterless cigarettes. Like, I don't want to think about the damage I did. It actually made me shudder after I had been quit for 2 years. And I was telling my doctor, I've been quit for 2 years, And she said, well, let's hope that it doesn't, when you did smoke doesn't come back to bite you in the end, or something like that. And I was like, oh yeah.
What?
Yeah. Well, I think what she meant was, I smoked for 10 years. I don't have pristine lungs. Like, that's just a fact of the matter. Even though your cilia eventually wakes up again and it starts to kind of like work again, and you breathe better and you taste better, and like your cardiac risk goes down as time goes on. I mean, really, truth be told, anything we do. When she said that, it kind of dawned on me that I was like, I'm not 110% in the clear, because I was puffing on filterless cigarettes for a decade. But I had never had anybody say to me like, well, let's just hope that doesn't come back and bite you in the end. And I was kind of like, oh yeah. Science says that could still be a thing, right? Anyway, and I'm also a childless woman approaching my 40s. So, there's that risk. But anyway, let's not talk about cancer risk. Let's get back to the brain fog. See, case in point, we're rambly and all over the place because we're both in the fog right now.
Yep. Oh, that is so true. Yep.
Let's bring some more humor into this. Some things that I have done in brain fog. Okay, this is without any intoxicants acting on my system, except maybe but with no intoxicants in my body. Actually what I did do today, I did this about a half hour ago I had no drinks for like days. And I had a Pepsi, my thermos that I take with me to work. It keeps ice cold for like 24 hours. It's like one of my prized possessions. But I had half a Pepsi in it. And I thought I had filled it with water or tea before I went to bed. So just before this call started, I went into the kitchen. I poured some tea into it. And then as I was talking to you before we started recording, I took a sip of it and didn't want to react, because I didn't want to admit in that moment that I had poured iced tea into a melted Pepsi that was 8 hours old. So I'm sitting here now, slightly dry-mouthed, because I'm like, do I really want to get up and go change out my drink?
Listen, I can one-up you. So to the listeners out there, it is never, ever, in my opinion, a good idea to go shopping after you've been on a stretch of...
Oh, God.
The thing is all of your inhibition is gone. All this idea of...
It's like a good idea, because you're not at work. You're happy.
Fuck this. I'm going to buy whatever the hell I want to buy.
I work for a living.
Gone.
I had my finger up 3 lessons last night. I earned this houseware.
Yep. Exactly. And so I think I dropped like $500 one morning at the grocery store. I filled the entire cart with these glorious meats. I'm like, ooh, filet mignon. Ooh, lobster. Ooh.
I just died a little bit even thinking about that. Like, See, I was thinking, even though it's not that I haven't done that. I mean, I've never dropped that much cash in one go, but I see how it would be easy to do that. Myself and a couple nurses went out to breakfast one morning. And then after breakfast, we were still like, we were kind of awake and frisky and like, frisky's not, we were like lively and like, chatty.
Yep.
And she was like, I have to go to Target. I have to get blah, blah, blah. And I was like, ooh, Target. We were still in our scrubs at that point, and I was like, let's just stop back by each of our places. We'll like put on not scrubs and we'll go to Target. We were at Target for like 2 hours. We didn't even buy all that much, but we were like trying on hats and taking selfies and Snapchatting, and like it was like we had gone to Disneyland, except it was Target. We were like running in to get stuff that they need. There's like housewives with their kids, like shopping for groceries and baby food and diapers, and I'm like holding up wooden, an F and a U. I have a picture of this. Me holding an F and a U from the craft department with this like crappy, it might be on my Instagram account, which is public. So if anybody wants to go to the Nurse Drizzle's Instagram account, you can see lots of pictures, including that one, as well as me loaded up at work carrying a commode and a fan and some oral suction kits. Yeah, so
that's exciting.
Check that out. So the fog is real, and the fog. Oh yeah, another thing that I've done. I can't remember what the item was, but I once like put an item that would never even need to be in the kitchen into the refrigerator.
Yep.
I wish I could remember what it was. Anyway, yeah. So you
peanut butter into the freezer.
Or like your car keys, or in the kitchen sink, and you're like, what? Why would I even do that? Who did that?
I got another one for you. So I don't drink that often anymore. I think I got this like out of my system like early on in my 20s. Now I'm kind of like, so I'm like once a month type of guy. And so I'm a super lightweight at this point. And so when I go to breakfast and these glorious post-shift breakfasts that we actually don't get to do that often, I have a quarter of a sip, Adrianne. I'm feeling a buzz. I am such a lightweight. I had 2 beers one morning. I was wasted. I mean, I was silly. Just 2 beers, Adrianne, and I'm a big guy. I'm over 300 pounds.
Yeah, but you know what? When you're tired and potentially dehydrated and you have had ample nutrition overnight, it's real easy to get a morning buzz. But yeah, the fog. I live like 10 minutes away from work, so I don't really have to deal with commuting. People say to me, like, there are times, I mean, I don't want to scare the general public into thinking that nurses are reckless, but like you're driving and you get home and you're like, wait a minute, I don't really remember. Drive.
Seriously, Adrianne, I used to drive from Moline, Illinois to Wellman, Iowa.
Oh yeah. So that's like, I mean,
that's an hour and a half one way.
Yeah. And I personally think that just like me driving to Wellman, which is like maybe 30 minutes, like that's a pain in the ass for me. I wouldn't even want to do that. And then you add on, like we talked about before, weather, traffic, hit a deer, God forbid.
So I was so desperate to get a job out of nursing school that I took anything that someone offered me. I interviewed maybe 2 or 3 times. Honestly, I don't really remember. I answered an ad on Craigslist for a nursing home in the middle of nowhere. And if anyone out there needs to know what Wellman is, it's basically like 2,000 people or less. In this town.
Are there any stoplights in that town?
Maybe 1 or 2.
Yes.
I took this job out of desperation because I didn't want to wait around when I got licensed. I wanted to start working right away. I wanted to start making money. I wanted to start like practicing nursing. And the problem was the job was an hour and a half away from my apartment. And so for the first 4 weeks of me working there, I would drive 3 days a week to and from work, hour and a half one way. So 3 hours a day I was driving, plus a 12-hour shift.
Makes your shift like 3 hours longer, basically.
Yep. So I can totally relate to that feeling of I have no idea how long I've been driving now. I completely forgot the last hour of driving. Because your brain, you just completely zone out and you're thinking about everything but probably what you should be thinking about.
Like, oh, did I chart this? Did I forget to put that bed alarm back on? Did I bring my lunch bag home? Just the things that are crossing your mind. And also, the other thing that lengthens our only 3 days a week into another gruelingly long day is that, oh my gosh, I took so long to get to my point. I forgot what it was. What was I going to say? Hold on, let me backtrack my thoughts. Guys, this is the fog. This is the fog. completely sober, and I lost track of what I was saying.
Do you think people are going to actually listen to us? Are they going to think that we're some crazy lunatics with this one?
The thing is that even though I have this fog, well, first of all, I'm not working right now. Like I'm just at home, sitting in my fucking pajama bottoms at my desk. The thing is that when I get to work, I always feel kind of sluggish for maybe the first half hour. Okay. And that first half hour, that could just be the time I'm getting a report. So I feel like even if I come to work and I'm tired and I'm like, ugh, I don't want to do this, I could go back to sleep. At the same time, one of the things that makes me a good nurse is the ability to fucking shut that off and be like, nope, patient needs me. They're not breathing well. My brain lights up. I'm suddenly once again at the top of my game. But as soon as that emergency's over and things settle back down and I sit down to chart, I'm going to get sleepy again. It doesn't mean that I am incapable of working. I mean, and if there was a time that I was just like, I am fucked and I can't keep a thought in my head, I would call in. I'm not going to put my patients at risk because I'm being a martyr. But at the same time, one of the things that makes me a good night shift worker is that even when, for example, a nurse who shall not be named that I've worked with in the past used to have difficulty staying awake if there wasn't anything going on. If they're caught up on their work, their charting is done, they do that kind of head bob thing. Okay. Yeah. But if I were to say, hey, Joe Blow, can you go get me this? They'd get right up and they'd be like, yeah, absolutely, I'll go get that. So it's just a matter of, it's kind of like when your computer goes to sleep. The internal memory is still running. If you touch a key, it's going to light back up and those programs are going to come back up for you. Yeah. So you go into sleep mode because when you're on every second of every shift, it's exhausting. And so sometimes you need to go into those power save modes. So, we joke around and we talk about the fog, but really the fog is mostly for me between shifts and when all of the work is done.
I was just going to say, an assignment that we had in Oregon, they allowed their employees to take naps. You could have a half an hour. It was during your break. You could do whatever the hell you wanted to do during your break. But even more importantly, they had this glorious massage chair in the break room. Oh, wow. It would surround you. All your limbs were taken care of. Your neck, your arms, your legs, your back. It was phenomenal. And I passed out several times in that chair. Sarah had to kind of shake me awake. But I feel like, I don't know, maybe sometimes a nap, what do you think, could be beneficial?
I've done that before on my lunch break. The thing is, I got really good at the power nap. So for a while I was not the unit I'm on now, but when I was a nursing assistant years ago, when I first started working nights, I was working on a really busy unit. The pace was fast. It was really hard. And so I got really good at the 20-minute power nap. We had a love seat. It was one of those it wasn't even a love seat like a couch. It was like a 2-seater, doctor's office waiting room chair that didn't have an arm in the middle. And I would get 2 bath blankets. Okay. I would lay one down on the surface so that I wasn't laying on a couch that everybody puts their dirty ass scrub pants, they sit on it or whatever. And then I would put a blanket over myself. I would set my alarm on my phone for 15, 20 minutes. And I would put the phone next to my ear so that it was touching my head so that I could feel the vibration and it would jolt me. Well, not jolt me awake, but it would for sure wake me up. And so I got really good at dozing off for 15, 20. And here's the thing. If you do just 15, 20 minutes, you're good. If you get into the 30, 40, 50-minute range, you're going to wake up groggy. So you want to do just these quick little power naps. I got really good at that because that can be the difference between you dragging ass through the rest of your shift or having it rejuvenates. It doesn't fix you're tired.
Right.
And also, you got to know your body. Some people can't do that. Some people say oh, hell no. When I go to sleep, I'm not getting up in 15 minutes. If that's the case, then do something else. Stretch or go for a walk, a slow-paced walk. When I worked day shift, I used to go out to the north lawn and sit under a tree. It took half my fucking break to get down there. But the 5 to 10 minutes I would spend under a tree in the grass in the spring weather was enough to make me go, okay, I don't need to jump off the roof right now. This day is totally manageable. I've had a second to reset. I'm going to go back in now. And
that's pretty solid.
I think you need to do that on nights too. You need to find the space. Some nights I can't do it because I'm too busy. But usually there's a lull between like 3 and 4 when I do, my hourly rounding. Most of the time I can at least sneak away for 10 minutes. Okay. And I'll go and I'll tell all my coworkers on that end, and I'll say, hey, I'm going to go stretch, and I will take a sheet or a bath blanket, and I will go into the break room, the locker room. We have dimmer lights in there. I'll dim the lights. Nobody goes in there at 3:00 in the morning. There's really no reason to. And so I will literally I have this yoga sequence that I do. I'll do yoga for literally like 10 minutes until my alarm goes off. And then I feel great. Mm-hmm. So you just got to find that thing that makes you feel better, because the fog is real.
Do you think that 12-hour shifts are dangerous in the workforce that need to be changed to every 8-hour shift?
Yeah, and I think that the 12-hour shift itself is not dangerous. I think what gets dangerous is when you factor in all the other shit that we just listed. The fact that your 12-hour shift is not going to be a 12-hour shift. First of all, our shifts are 12 and a half hours, because we don't get paid for our 30-minute lunch. So we work 7 p.m. to 7:30 a.m.
Uh-huh.
So technically that's already 12 and a half. I'm not going to relist all the shit we just talked about. But I personally, because I live in town and because I personally like this way, some people would hate to do this, I only work 1 or 2 days at a time. And I've even communicated to my manager, I don't get as many migraines when I work fewer days in a row. I'm a better, they understand that that's just my preference. Some people, if you live an hour away or whatever, you just want to get your shit done. Do your 3 days, have 4 or 5 days off, come back, do your 3 days, have 4 or 5 days off, however you schedule it. But I'm not that person. I don't thrive in the work bed cycle. Like, I do better when I know that I'm not racing to get up at a particular time for many days in a row. So the week that I worked, that I was scheduled to work 5 in a row, by day 4 and a half, I was like vomiting with a migraine, because I can't sleep under those circumstances and then work 13, 14 hours or be awake.
Fuck, what the hell was I going to say? See, this is the problem. I was going to say, it was so compelling.
Illustration. Awesome. So yeah, what I also wanted to say is the fog doesn't really so much hit me when I'm at work, because when I'm at work, my brain is alight. Not only is there the fear that I'm going to miss something that keeps me on my toes, but also I hourly round. I mean, there might be some nights when I can't because I'm busy or I really have to chart or like something is happening.
But I really hourly round, legit hourly round.
Here's the thing. If it's like a CFer that's like completely independent, if they can get up and go to the bathroom and they're not a fall risk and whatever.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't even want to tell you how many people I've caught hanging halfway out of a fucking bed because I hourly rounded. Like, seriously. And
you guys use bed alarms, don't you?
Well, yeah, but if it's somebody that wasn't a risk, like we had a woman that wasn't a fall risk at all. And she slipped on something on the floor and fell. So I'm telling you, it's not like sometimes I do every 2 hours. But there are some people, especially my palliative patients, my respiratory patients, you have no idea how many times I've walked in on somebody trying to pull some shit that was dangerous because like they couldn't reach something or they couldn't find their call light. So I'm sorry. I know it's extra steps. It's not always possible. But if you're sitting on your ass at a computer at 2 a.m, fucking walk 15 feet and look in on your demented, confused patient or even your regular patient.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
The other thing is, here's another point. I'm sorry to interrupt you. But this happened just recently, and I felt like it was a fantastic interaction I had with him. There was a patient that I was taking care of. He was totally alert-oriented. He had a lung infection. They didn't know what the hell was going on, so they were doing a bunch of tests, and they had no idea. And he was fine. So I was doing every 2-hour rounding, and what I learned from that was that this man was basically crying in his room awake all night and didn't want to tell me. But every time I would go in there to see him, he seemed relieved. I would just kind of sit, on the chair next to his bed, sit on the edge of the chair and, held his hand for a little bit and talked to him. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. He didn't fucking need anything that you would think a nurse, he didn't need water. He didn't need pain meds. He didn't need anything from me. But if I hadn't been hourly or 2 hourly, if I hadn't been 2 hourly rounding on him, I would have had no idea that this man was absolutely beside himself with worry. So,
You're a supporter.
And it was his first night there. So I think that, there are lots of non-medical reasons to hourly round. And then the other benefit is with my very first float to the ICU, I've only had one, but my very first float to the ICU, they gave me a patient that was sound asleep all night long, was fine, and was there for a GI bleed. Cleaned him up a couple times. He went back to sleep. No big deal. Well, at one point, I had two patients. I peeked in on one patient. She was fine. She was asleep. Was going to go pee real quick because I had to go to the bathroom, and then was going to check in on my other guy. As I was walking towards the break room with the bathroom in it, my spidey sense kicked in, and the hairs on the back of my neck kind of stood up a little bit, and I was like, I'm going to go look at this guy. This guy only had, I think he was missing a limb or something. He was confused. He had some open wounds. Fucker was halfway out of bed.
No bed alarm?
Here's the thing. He hadn't made an attempt to get out of bed in any of the days he had been there. I mean, that's an argument. Maybe those people need a bed alarm anyway. But I guess point being is that I've had multiple instances where my potentially unnecessary hourly rounding, because I was just in there, saved me from, or saved my patient from either a really messed up night, or saved me from having to clean up a poop-covered one-armed man off the floor. It's
I basically don't trust any patient's word when it comes to them saying, I'll stay in bed. I'll stay in bed. Oh, okay.
Even if bed alarm everybody?
Honestly, Adrianne, I bed alarm almost every single person. And the reason is...
So when they roll over or they scoot themselves up in bed and your bed alarm is going off?
But the thing is, the patient population that I'm used to dealing with here on trauma, for instance,
that's true. Yeah.
Most people are dependent. They have multiple bilateral fractures, not just, they could be just one leg.
They're jacked up, is what you're saying.
They're super at risk for delirium because of the frequent neuro checks and frequent trauma checks that we do, but also the amount of narcotics that we give, which all about with palliative. I mean, we don't even touch this, and this is another episode. We should totally talk about narcotics and palliative, but we don't touch even a surface of the amount of narcotics that you guys touch, which for good reason. I mean, but I'm just saying, they're at risk nonetheless because of the trauma and the
These
narcotics.
These are all
yep. So needless to say, I basically bed alarm every person because most of them are high fall risk. I don't take the chance anymore because I'm not trying to get burned. And I really, really don't want to be that guy that, didn't use a bed alarm on somebody and they end up falling. And then they do this whole risk analysis business and figure out, well, I bet you a bed alarm could have been helpful in this point or in this instance. Although sometimes I just had this last night. The bed alarms don't even work. These $30,000, $40,000 beds, the bed alarms don't work for shit sometimes. You'd think for that amount of money, these bed alarms would work. We had to use a pad alarm. The ones where it's like a chair alarm essentially, where they sit on it. If they get up, it'll ring. Mm-hmm. Same concept because the bed alarm didn't work. And I understand shit breaks sometimes, but bed alarms and on the other side of things don't work all the time. So it's like a safety blanket that I just can't seem to let go of, regardless if someone's oriented or not.
I get it.
Because the oriented people will be like, I got this. I'm independent at home. I've got enough strength. I've got a little bit of a fracture, but I'm fine. They get up, they're orthostatic, they're narked, they've got pain meds on board.
Down they go.
Right. Maybe they're a little bit hypoxic. Maybe they're a little anemic because of the blood loss. But they're like, you know what? They rationalize in their mind, I got this.
That table isn't that far away. I can get to it.
Yeah, and they don't have non-slip socks on. They've got SCDs on. They've got IV poles and epidural, chest tubes. And they're like, I got this. And that's why I bed alarm everybody, Adrianne.
Yeah, no, that's valid. You have to remember that my population, we range between people that legitimately are fine and just come in for IV antibiotics or a COPD exacerbation or something.
Sure.
They're mostly fine. They've been managing their illness their whole lives or, most of their lives. And those people, that's cool. You go out to dinner with your family and then you come back and our NPs are cool. That's a very different environment. We also have those patients that are confused, not able to get, I've had a patient who had no legs. It's I'm going to go to the bathroom. And you're like,
no,
how do you, in your delirium, how do you propose you're going to do this?
Yeah. Give me a 5-step process. Tell me about this.
So yeah, that's legit. Those But then, we also have patients that, are dying and they can't. Like, they couldn't get out of bed even if they summoned all of the will in their body. So our patient population is very varied. And so I can see how it's 150% legitimate for you to bed alarm the hell out of everybody there.
I would say regarding the palliative units, I've had patients, I haven't personally, but I've had coworkers that have had patients that have fallen, cracked their face, because we thought that they were just out of their, they were out, they were altered, they were obtunded, but we assumed that they were out of it, so we didn't take precaution. And then sure enough, we find them in our hourly check that they're indeed on the floor with a cracked face. So I don't know if there's a right answer with the bed alarm, and it's a complicated matter.
Your judgment. You need to know your patient. You need to know the risk. You need to know what's at stake for them. Like if you're a 25-year-old dude and you play rugby on the weekends when you're not here getting your antibiotics, I'm not as worried about you as if you're, anybody else. And granted, that doesn't mean that if you're young and healthy that you're not at risk. I mean, the hospital's full of wires and cords and things on wheels. Like, I get that. But that also is another reason that I'm peeking my head in. Or like if I have a patient that's really at risk, or if they're dying, even if they're not fucking moving, if they're dying, I'm in there all the time anyway, giving Robenal every 15 minutes, hitting their PPA every 10 minutes. So, but I think you're right. I think that you need to know your population, you need to know your patient, and you need to trust your instincts. I'm kind of like hyper aware of that shit, because I'll be damned if you're going to make me take you down for a head CT at 3 a.m.
Right.
I wanted to see if your phone cord was in your bag. Like, hell no.
I know. Well, so the brain fog is a real deal. It's a challenge that all third shift night. See what I'm saying? This is the problem. I'm trying to talk here and I can't even say what I want to fucking say. It's a problem that all third shifter night nurses feel. And we're even experiencing it at this very moment where I have a hard time coming up with a coherent thought, because there's something about third shift that kind of screws with your brain. I'm finding that soon, probably within the next year, I'll need a change, because I don't like the effect it's having on me physically as well as my personal life.
Yeah.
It has been a fantastic talk tonight, Adrianne.
Yes, it has. And now that I'm finally starting to feel awake, it's now 9:20 at night, and I'm like, yeah, let's get this day started. And I think Doug's probably gone to bed while I've been in here. But the brain fog is real. We keep saying that, but it's true. It doesn't make us unsafe nurses. It just means that we need our friends and family to be a little bit more understanding that, after we've worked 3 days, then we have a few days off. We might not, first of all, the day after our last shift ends, we spend that whole fucking day sleeping. And if you're trying to get back on a night sleeping schedule, you're spending that whole day as a zombie trying to reorient yourself to sleep at night. So it's a constant struggle. It's multifaceted. And all we ask is that if you are one of our loved ones or our friends, that you understand that when we're slurring our words and we don't want to get off the couch, and I don't want to put a bra on, and I don't want to have a long conversation on the phone, it's not because I don't love the people in my life. It's because I cannot think straight. I just want to lay on my couch and watch The Sopranos and eat Haagen-Dazs and not think about work for at least, the 2-3 days until I have to go back again. So, yes.
For sure. And I will end this note with, don't ever say to your nursing buddies, oh, you only work 36 hours a week. What's the big deal?
Never, guy.
Never. Thanks for talking, Adrianne, and I suspect we will be talking very soon.
Indeed. So, guys, thanks for joining us for another episode of Medroom Chronicles. As always, we love your support, we love your feedback, but we want everyone to know that you love us. So subscribe on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Spreaker. Go to medroomchronicles.com. Find out everything and more that you wanted to know about us and our show. All right, Andrew. Peace out. You have a good night and happy nursing.